do you create environments, or how do you help leaders foster environments where teams are thriving to the point where, it's reducing turnover and increasing productivity at the same time? Because, like you said earlier, when we're building teams, it's not necessarily productive to have all rock stars or all, that one type of person. We are structuring our teams to be um, a whole force, a whole system, a whole machine. But how do you make sure that every part of that team, feels included to where turnover isn't an issue and productivity isn't, suffering?
Before we dive back into today's conversation, I want to share something important. This episode includes a paid partnership with BetterHelp, a platform designed to make starting therapy easier. I know from my own journey as a leader and entrepreneur that life can sometimes feel overwhelming. There are seasons where stress, uncertainty, and pressure build up, and you need a safe space to process it all. That's where therapy comes in. Therapy isn't only for people facing clinical challenges. It's a space to reflect, grow, and find better ways to manage stress, relationships, and personal goals. It takes courage to seek help, but it's also one of the smartest investments you can make in your mental and emotional well-being. That's why I'm proud to highlight BetterHelp. With BetterHelp, you simply fill out a short questionnaire and get matched with a credentialed therapist in just a couple of days. If the first match doesn't feel like the right fit, you can easily switch therapists at no extra cost until you find someone who truly connects with you. Inside the platform, you'll also find tools like journaling and group sessions on different topics that can support your growth. And with over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 Trustpilot rating, BetterHelp is a platform you can rely on. So if you feel like you'd benefit from talking to a therapist, visit betterhelp.com/KingDames. That's betterhelp.com/KingDames to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Once again, this is a paid partnership with BetterHelp, and I encourage you to take that first step if you've been thinking about it. Sometimes the best investment you can make is in yourself.
Welcome to the King Dems podcast, where we share the stories of extraordinary people and dissect hot, relevant topics that shape our world. From visionary leaders to trailblazing creatives, we uncover the mindset, strategy, and grit behind greatness. Whether it's business, culture, or personal growth, we ask the real questions. This isn't just conversation, it's transformation. The King Dems podcast. Your next breakthrough starts here.
Music licensing reimagined.
You're live. Ladies and gentlemen, you're once again welcome to the King Dems podcast in Diary of the CFO. And today, I've got with me a VVVIP fortune out of Poznan, Poland. Back welcome, Aleksandra Lemańska. And when the action begins, my co-host is no other, the best sales expert on earth. Let's go. Whoa.
I'm ready.
Okay. So you once again welcome. Aleksandra. It's been a couple of months in the making, but we made it happen. Like and many people don't know, we're actually family, She's my in-law, My brother is married to a Polish lady, and of course, Poland is very, very close to my heart. I have been in Poland without being in Poland. I was in a former part of Poland, Lithuania. Was that last year? Yeah. So I love Poland. Go Poland. And we've actually done our assignments, to give you your flowers, because your body of work is actually highly, highly impressive. So today we are incredibly excited to sit down with the one and only Aleksandra Lemańska, a renowned leadership expert, the visionary founder of Leman Skills, and the brilliant mind behind the groundbreaking CQ leadership method. Aleksandra has dedicated her career to revolutionizing how tech leaders communicate, build high-performing teams, and truly excel in today's dynamic and often complex environment. Get ready for an insightful conversation. Let's dive in. So I'll love for my co-host to shoot you the first question. They say ladies first.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Aleksandra. We're so excited to have you talk about your expertise in leadership. For anyone who may not be familiar with the type of work you do, could you share a bit just about your journey and what inspired you to dedicate your career to tech leadership and, the communication intelligence that you dedicate your life to right now?
Yeah, of course. Hi, team. Thank you for having me. It was a long journey for us to meet here today, but fifth time's a charm, I would say.
I tell you, Nelson
Yes.
Mandela wrote a book. He called it A Long Walk to Freedom, and of course,
Yeah.
finally, this is the long walk
It
to
sure
freedom.
fits. It sure fits. So I'm so happy to be here and excited to talk to you both. So my name is Aleksandra Lemańska. Alex is in short as well. Good. And my story is quite unusual, I would say, but I think that's most of guests are saying that the story is unusual because I was a violinist since I was 8 years old. So the whole journey that I had in my childhood as a young adult was to become a musician.
Mhm.
And 12 years of education in Poland, 6 years in the primary school, quote unquote, so that's the next 6 in the higher education in music, in being a musician, becoming a musician. And then I have already started an academy of music as well. So it was all set and done. And I was an straight A grade student, like the nerd of the nerds. So it was always super important to me to be the best of the best, like great students, of course. And it was the second year of my music academy, and I was having so much fun as well because musicians are fun, and classical music as well. And I had great grades, great friends. I started to play in different orchestras all around Europe, and in Poland there is this part of musical education, the art education overall, that you need to be a great solo player, solo musician to be in orchestras or teams of musicians. And I never wanted to be the greatest solo person on the stage. I was great in the orchestra. I also led a lot of orchestras, actually, back then. The weirdest thing started to happen. I was so stressed, it was years ago. I didn't have all of those tools that I have right now. And I started to fail my exams, only solo exams. And I was like, what the hell is going on? Because, I never failed. It was like, it wasn't possible for me. And I failed
Mhm.
once, then I failed for the second time. And the dean of the academy organized a meeting and she told me, maybe it's time for you to quit. And I was like, what are you saying to me? I'm not a quitter. Like I was only A's or B's plus from different things, and only one failed exam. So I was like, not going to happen. And I left. And then I failed again. And it was like super hard for me because, the whole life you're being prepared for this journey. And it wasn't like I couldn't done something else. I was pretty smart as a kid and as a teenager, but it was a path, and it was a lot of money and time invested in practicing, concerts, traveling, all of those instruments, all of those things. And I was like, maybe it's time to quit. And I did analysis because my brain is super analytical. And I was angry. I was upset. I was sad because, it was like a part of my identity to be a musician. But I've decided to quit. And my parents actually didn't talk to me for like 2 or 3 weeks after this decision because, my whole life was created around. And I've changed to my whole life. I've shifted my identity. I moved cities. I applied to University of Technology. So I became an engineer and then a business psychologist. And right now, here I am with all of my skills, analytical brain that was formed as a musical person, musical kid. And the last 10 plus years, I spent to work around supporting others, supporting mainly leaders and their teams, mainly in technology because of my engineering brain that was created back then in the musician times. And I've decided that I don't want for other people to hear that sentence. Maybe it's time for you to quit. And instead of giving support, asking questions, or maybe show the direction or show what's on the table to choose out of, I've seen so many situations like that in my career in business and different organizations, corporate world, medium, small, big organizations in Poland and globally. That it is like, for me, it's a mission, but also a lifelong project. And that's why I started to create my own tools. I learn all the time. I started to create the frameworks. And right now, where I am, 2025, we're recording it, October, and I'm in this moment where I run my own business for almost 6 years now, and I've created tools, frameworks, and a part of the method that I think that we are going to talk about today. So here we go.
That's awesome. That's amazing. That's
That's a
quite the
lot.
story. I know that AI definitely, myself as well, we definitely relate to kind of the golden child, super analytical, nerdy kid, best of the best type of kid. And then
Guess
to
what?
be
Guess
faced
what?
with,
Look what I have on my screen, right? This is one of my favorite songs. This is a song by Connor Price. The title is Straight A Student. Straight A Student. And that is
Yeah.
what we are, everybody on this call. The guy
uh
says, I'm a straight A student, but I'm friends with the cool kids.
Yeah.
Following all the rules
Definitely
of
is
the
a
rule
way.
break. Go listen to that song. It's the story of your life.
I
Sorry,
will.
the story of
I
our
will.
life.
but it,
And you're
yeah,
speaking
it's
to two
definite.
musicians. You're speaking to two
Mhm.
musicians as well.
No coincidence,
Yeah,
right?
it definitely
Whoa.
runs deep, especially like I've definitely had situations where you dedicate your whole life to a certain path and then you face that failure and you do go through huge identity shifts. But it sounds like because of that experience, you've been able to create your QC leadership method kind of around those experiences. And now you're helping a lot of businesses, which is amazing. Would you be able to kind of give us like a quick overview of what the CQ, sorry, I think I said QC, CQ leadership method entails?
Of course. So CQ communication intelligence, so this is an abbreviation from leadership method, is a framework that I've created based on my work with leaders, especially in technology engineering. It is my main area of expertise because I'm an engineer myself. And since I started my work in HR in the organization, from the very beginning, I've started working with IT technology engineers because you speak the language. So this is like
Mm-hmm.
a natural thing to do. And it was like over 10 years ago. And not a lot of HR people actually spoke the language of technology. So it was something that was natural when it comes to giving me those business units to take care of. So based on all of those experiences that I held all the years, being an HR business partner, working with people on the C-level, directors and minus one, all of those levels of management and their teams, I've gathered so many examples, experiences, and I saw the patterns. And the pattern recognition, I think it's one of the most important skills right now, especially in the age of technology that is growing so rapidly that we need to take care of our brains and our skill sets and mindsets to see how we use the technology, not be pushed by it out of what we are doing on a daily basis. So it was something that I've created based on that. I learned the tools all over the way. I got certifications. I fed my brain so hard, so it was important. And I saw the patterns when it comes to communication and how much it is entitled to the leadership itself, because leadership is all about product and it's all about people that create this product regardless of the industry, the part of the world that you're in. And how you lead your team is directly proportional to how your team built the product
Mm-hmm.
services that you are providing to your clients. Internal, external one depends on where the team is. And I've based on the transaction analysis. This is the part of the science, the psychology that I'm very entitled to. This is a part of the Eric Burns work. So it was the part of the psychology that he didn't believe that the Freud's work was the best possible one. So he created the new one. And there were so many tools that you could use as you work in a therapy process, but also they are super replicable to organizations, teams, and leaders because there are always transactions between people. And based on that, there are many different tools that I use in the organizational path. And there is the whole process communication model, PCM framework that I use and is a part of the CQ method. So it is like there are the layers of the tools and little pieces of exercises that you can do, pieces of the knowledge that I give leaders and their teams. But the main goal of it is that you understand yourself, so you know how to tailor communication, because communication intelligence is about tailoring your communication to others, because it's one of the most the biggest misconception is that there is actually one size fits all. If I like something, I'm sure that they will like something, and it will
Mhm.
fit their preferences when it comes to communication, how they like to work, what kind of delegation in tools they are going to be responsive to, etc. So the method itself is about gathering all of those tools that I believe and I made it in practice that they work. They are logical because a lot of people, when it comes to this group of engineering technology leaders, are very analytical brains, so they need to have patterns and logical things to use. So I decided to give them the essence of everything that I've learned over the last 10 plus years, and I've created the method that they can take and implement right away, not after like months and months of learning. They can take it and they can implement it right away to their work.
Nice, nice. And I know that you mentioned a couple pivotal moments prior to switching gears over to engineering, which kind of led to this entire approach. Were there, I guess, when you started in engineering and when you started kind of developing this method, getting your strategies together, working with these leaders, can you think back to your early career after you kind of switched over? And were there any pivotal moments that drew you closer to leadership psychology and development of the frameworks of your CQ method? Was there something during your engineer time, maybe during school or when you first started, that you can think of?
Yeah, for sure. I started to work very early in my engineering degree. It was a full-time job actually, because I managed to do so many things in a daily basis that I've decided to start working as fast as possible, because it was important to me to put things into practice. And I think we know that University of Technology is, and I know that it differs from country to country, but in Poland is very theory based. So a lot of
Mhm.
theory, a lot of talking about the past, the books that professors wrote, right? And a lot of those people never work a day in business. So there's no application whatsoever when it comes to the
Right.
theory versus business.
Sorry to interrupt you. Why does you describing Poland sound like you're describing Nigeria?
As I said, there are patterns all over the world, and it's not only our countries. Yes.
Shout out to Nigeria.
Shout out to
Nigeria and
Nigeria. Shout out to
Poland.
Poland. Yes, that's true. And you are united by blood right now, so yeah,
And
it's
I'm in
even
the
more.
United Kingdom. That is why you got
Yeah.
united.
Yes, that's true. That's true. It's not funny, but it's like funny, not funny thing that we are seen as very smart people. And from the intellectual perspective, I think it's right. There are all of the research connected with that, but we are learning so much theory that there's no space for practice most of the time as well. And
Mhm.
children in the age of 6 or 7, when they start school, they're learning. Of course, it's changing right now, and different in public schooling, different in private schooling. But as we did learn in our generation, it was something like that. So I've decided to go to practice as fast as I could. So I've started a little internship with PR agency. So I started to move my brain a little bit into how people actually work and what they need in the market, so we can create the better solutions. But I very soon decided to go into HR, because it was like a connection between the human part that I loved, because I was a musician for years. So I've created value for people so they can change themselves a little bit. And then the engineering part, because my love to process, to create processes, to put the things in the right places was huge. So I've decided to join the project that was connected with transformation. So, hey, change and transformation right away. And we've moved, and I was a recruiter back then. And we moved several roles from UK and US to Poland because of the costs, of course. Back then, it was always over 10 years ago now. And the funny thing, got to know like 5 years ago or so, the same roles that we moved from UK and the US were moved to India and Nepal from Poland because of the costs. of course, we know how it works right now. And it was a pivotal moment for me to start working in a corporation right away. It's the first job as an HR person, it was in corporate world. And I saw so many things that were not so good, but I saw a lot of things that are very good when it comes to, the organizational culture, things that you can do with that kind of budgets that are in corporate that are not in the small organizations. Then I switched gears. I work in Polish organization, big organization, around 1,000 people, 1,200 or something tops. Then I moved into different organizations, having higher and higher roles, but switched and pivoted myself from being an HR person, like a generalist, to the learning and development, because it was the development, the growth of people was also in my heart. So it was the most
L&D.
important thing for me. Yes, L&D, indeed. And I grew. I took more and more responsible jobs, higher and higher in the organization. I started to be a leader myself very early in my career because of my skills and mindsets and so on, and this eager to learn all the time. But it was a shift, very important shift to me when I was in one big organization, and it was a corporate environment, and I was responsible for the huge part of the world back then in the technology, one of the companies that were inside of the portfolio of companies. My boss was in US, and he was responsible for the Americas, and I was responsible for the rest of the world because it was like possible, of course, for me to do. So it was UK, Spain, Italy, Germany, France, Poland, Middle
Hmm.
East, India, New Zealand, Japan, Australia. Of course, because it is so manageable. And I created a huge program for tech leaders back then. And we both ran it in our regions. And people were so happy about it. It was the first time that something like that was created. And we had great feedback. And we ran the project very successfully. And then, because it was a global call, the boss of my boss told that we need to lie about how we've created this program because it's not possible from the corporate perspective. So we, as like a small people in this whole big structure, to build something on our own. So we needed to say that it is based on the other project and the other program that was already built inside of the
Hmm.
organization. So it was like, are you kidding me? And it was it. I was done.
Hmm.
And I decided, you know what? It's like I don't want to do something like that. It's like my ethics, the need to create value out of trust and high quality was so important for me. So I've decided, you know what? I just need to do my own thing because it's like I cannot work that way. The money was great. A position that I have was amazing. I was very high in the structure. I had a lot of autonomy, but this situation was like a no-go for me. And since
Hmm.
then, my brain started to go in this direction of doing things on my own. I had different organization. I did a part-time then. So it was an iterative work, I would say, to transfer myself to where I'm now with my team. But it was pivotal, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you speak about creating programs that impact leadership globally. Because obviously at our pot, if you can't tell, we're all from different countries right now. So a lot of what we do is create global impact, and we love speaking about topics that impact business in all different countries. So to hear that you have that expertise is such kind of an inspiring story because you also knew when to walk away. And I think that's a lot of pressure that not only is put on you, but even a lot of people in our audience when they're in different workforces or they're moving through pivotal moments, it takes a lot of wisdom to know, like, okay, how much am I going to give to a company when I'm in a great position, when I'm making a lot of money, when I'm making this global impact and in control of this insane program that I'm building for several different countries? It takes an immense amount of like self trust, self awareness, and self leadership. Obviously, you have to lead yourself in order to lead other people. So that's like, it's just really amazing to kind of hear that we definitely see the value in those skills. I'm gonna have AI kind of take the next couple questions for you so we can keep it moving. But yeah, I think it's just so incredible to have that self leadership. I think you're definitely just speaking on that so well. Because in order to pivot, you have to have such self awareness and you have to have such self leadership. So I just think that's really awesome.
Wow, it's actually been, what I say, a mouthful, a handful, a globe full, you know, everything that you've said, your journey, it's very, very robust. But, a couple of things that have hit me is I'll take first your philosophy, because your philosophy very much aligns with my philosophy, our philosophy. We have three podcasts, right? Two of them are globally ranked. The third one we just started, was it last week? Yeah. The $1 million Blueprint podcast. And that podcast is about interviewing millionaires from all around the world. And we ask them questions on three things. That is the three pillars of our philosophy. Number one, mindset. Number two, skill sets. Number three, tool sets. And you've mentioned those three things today on this podcast. The real recognize the real, life is principle based. That's just the thing. You in Poland, United Kingdom, America, but we have never sat down together to have a single conversation, or we've always operated in a particular direction. And mindset is very, very important. I had to learn this from a very, very expensive business coach when it comes to hiring. And of course, you're into HR, and you probably did not know. Last month, I was invited to train a couple of HR professionals on business acumen, right? And this is, one of the things I had to teach them. Before you hire a person, most organizations evaluate the skill set, but don't realize they need to evaluate the mindset first before evaluating the skill set, and then evaluating the, would I say, the ability to use the tool sets, right? So I'd love for you to speak on that mindset, skill set, tool set. So,
Yeah, I agree. And personally, when I hire people, the first thing that I do is to talk about mindset and to evaluate the personality structure. Of course, I'm not telling them that I'm evaluating the structure, because there is a questionnaire from the process communication model perspective, but I'm not using it for the recruitment processes. But I believe that we can all learn. And myself, and I'm sure that both of you as well, are the best examples that you can learn anything you have, anything you need to do the work. But if you don't have your mind right, and if you are not courageous enough, if you are not curious enough to do it, persistent, it is not going to happen. Because you can be the smartest person in the world. But if you don't want to use the knowledge, if you don't want to share it, if you don't want to help people thriving and being the best version of themselves, I think this is the essence of the leadership in partnership as well, of course, because I've heard once the sentence that stuck with me, and it's with me since then, that we'll teach leaders how to be good leaders, but we
Hmm.
don't teach team members how to be a good team member to
mm,
others. And I
that's
think
deep.
this is super powerful.
Mm,
Absolutely. I think
that's
even so, like training team members, it's the same awareness, same skill set that you're teaching the leaders, because at the end of the day, even if you have someone at the head who's delegating, the stronger, they say another quote too, your strongest leader is only as strong as the team under them, So you have to empower your team. You have to make sure that, yes, they have the right mindset and kind of integrate leadership into the team so that the team is also self-leading. I think there are so many businesses where that definitely goes into the mindset, like you're mentioning. If your team doesn't have a mindset of where they want to empower people, where they do not want to grow, maybe they just want to sit in the skills that they've learned and maybe, sit in a corporate setting or do whatever. I think being stagnant can be a huge issue for sure when building a team to be, just something to be very mindful of. But I think being able to integrate your team into your leadership only makes the whole unit stronger for sure. So yeah, you're making really, really, really good points for sure.
Two things that came to
We are
my
very
mind.
passionate about it.
Yes, that's true. Two things that I think that important and came to my mind because Ella, you mentioned that when people are stagnant, that can be an issue for a team, and
Mhm.
when people don't want to learn. And you know what?
Yes.
Years ago, it was heartbreaking for me if a person don't want to learn. They don't want to sign up to workshops. They don't want to go on one-on-one sessions with me or something like that. But over the years, I've learned that it's okay for some people if they don't want to learn. If they want to be good at their job, it is okay to let them go with Mel Robbins, to let them. And
Mhm.
there's this great book that is, I think, a Bible of leadership, The Radical Candor by Kim Scott. It is something that I work with, the method and the framework, but also in the book, Kim is writing very, very good about team development. And she's talking about how important it is to have people who do the maintenance work, the repetitive
Yeah.
tasks that there need to be done. Of course, some of them are replaced by technology and will be replaced by technology, but not all of them. And you cannot have all of the stars in your team because if you have only stars in a team, it is very, very not sustainable to lead a team like that.
A
Mhm.
So I
players
think,
only.
of course, it is super hard to have only A players because the ego are huge. They need
Yeah.
constant and challenges, new projects, and let's be honest, there's no such business like that. Even if in the first part of when the business grows very fast, I work in startup environment very closely. So
Mhm.
even if you run a startup, there are phases. So first, they are growing very rapidly, of course, but then there's a maintenance phase, and we need people to maintain things as well. So
Mhm.
what I teach leaders, and it is my learning as a leader as well, to not be mad at people who don't want to learn all the time like myself, because this is my
Mhm.
passion and not theirs. And you know what? It was one of
I
the
learned
biggest
it the
leadership
hard
lessons
way.
I had. Yes, exactly. And I lost people because of those beliefs that I had that
Hmm.
all the people need to learn, need to be like me, very passionate about learning, lifelong learning in a value list. I've learned that it is not true, and it's
Hmm.
okay
Mhm.
to let people not be as I am, and they're okay as well in their
Hmm.
thinking. Of course, the question is what kind of team and what kind of organization we want to lead. This is a different
Mhm.
story, but from the base of understanding the human thinking and to the way of doing things, it is okay to let them. So I think that what you said, it resonated with me, and I see so many examples of people that are very mad at their teams that they don't want to learn, they don't want to use the budget, to trainings, they don't want to use the money, and they
Mhm.
don't understand why. And it's just out of the values. It's just it. It's not important for me. Or I'm in the moment of my life where I need to take care of my family, of my health. I just had a kid, and this is not my priority at the moment. And
Mhm.
we need to make a contract around it to see how it fits to the organizational goals, the team goals, but also a person that is in front of us. This is the leadership essence, I would
Mhm.
say.
I had to learn it the
Very
hard
well
way.
said. Yeah.
You develop programs, training programs, learning opportunities, but then they say, this is not my priority. You know, even I had to spend money on trainings and have my business partner say, I am not interested in that thing. It hurts very deep, especially when you spend money. You
It
spend
does.
money on a training and then they say, no. Like, so what are you going to do? Are you going to force them? Sometimes you need to learn the hard way to let them. You
I
can
did
force
force them in the past, because it
force
was
you can
like,
force a horse to the stream. And
yeah.
this is something myself and Noella were discussing about, I think, yesterday. You can force a horse to the stream, or you can't force it to drink.
Yeah.
I had to let it in the hard way. Give a man a fish, you fed him for a day, but teach a man to fish,
Sure.
you fed him for a lifetime. So we are in the business of teaching men to fish. I'd rather feed you for a lifetime than, feed you for just one day. It's very tiring. It means you're going to wake me up the next day to feed you again. The next day, come on, come on. Like you need to learn how to fish. And speaking of learning how to fish, trainings are very, very essential. I love the fact that you are into training, and of course that's something we are also into as well. But as far as the philosophies, go, philosophies are born out of principles, right? And the world is ruled by principles. CQ method, please educate us, teach us, train us, because the two goals of this podcast are to educate and to motivate. And that's why we have the best in the best of the best from around the world come on this platform to educate us and motivate us. You have been motivating us. Now we want you to educate us. Thank you very much.
Okay, in a nutshell, because I can teach you and educate
By
you
the
for
way,
a week. A week.
Dzień dobry.
Mhm. Okay, so the essence of the method, the goal of the method is for you the two things. The first thing is so you understand yourself. Like I mentioned, the self-awareness and self-leadership. And this is always the first thing. Before you start leading others, you need to know yourself. So the first step in the method is to map yourself when it comes to your process communication model, personality, and communication preferences structure. So there are 6 levels of the personality. Every single person on the planet has them, but there's always one thing that's going to be dominant. And actually, it was shaped around 6-8 years old or something like that. So young kids had this forming moment in their lives when they are learning about themselves and the world that is around them. They learn what they need to do or not to do to be seen, loved, taken care of. So it shaped their belief system, actually, about themselves and the world. And the neurological system is shaping as well in this age. So that's why this is this moment, and we have it for adult life. And in the base of personality, once you know what it is, you can take a questionnaire, you can work around hypothesis. Of course, this is always the best thing, especially for tech IT engineering people, to have numbers so you can have the report and you can have your structure. But without that, you can make hypotheses as well and see, okay, so what is the language that I prefer? What is the type of the sentences that I prefer for me to use? What are my main psychological motivational needs? What is my distress sequence? So how I react as a pattern in the stress situations, under pressure, when there is a tight deadline, when I have not a lot of resources and I need to manage certain situations, and so on and so forth. So there are many different elements in there that you can learn about yourself. And once you have it, then you can go and map your team. So this is number 2. So step number 2 is to map your team. I even create a super short and simple Excel spreadsheet that you can use. You put your name of your teammates in there and you make your observations. You take verbal communication, emails, Slack, Teams messages, and you just look for the keywords, because we all have one main preference when it comes to communication, and we can map people that are around us. So as I mentioned, there are 6 types of language that people are using, and you have the keywords that are around all 6 of them. And you are just starting the curiosity journey, and you start to analyzing things that people are doing, how they are talking, what they are talking. So the verbal and nonverbal communication, and how they behave under stress, under pressure, because this is all data about people. And that way you have hypotheses about your team. Of course, you can map your team with questionnaire, but that is not the key. The key is for you to understand how to map a person and make a good hypothesis to then tailor communication more after first 2-3 sentences that they're saying to you. So this is the key. So very fast and very efficient So because we don't have the time, so we make the time. We need to have efficient things that we can use right away. And this is what they learn in workshops, growth processes, one-on-one sessions with me, from the podcast that I run, and everything that's there is a base that you can use. So this is number 2. Number 3 is to match the communication, tailor the communication. People are going into misunderstandings, conflicts. They hate working with each other. They don't understand each other, not because they have bad intentions, but because they speak different languages. And I don't mean that I speak Polish and you speak English. But if I speak data and I say the facts are that, the data is saying, the numbers are that, it is not logical to make that kind of decisions. And the other person is saying, Alex, I don't feel it. I don't know. I'm not sure why, but I know in my heart, it doesn't feel very well. And, I'm messing up a little bit. But the same part of the brain is responsible for talking and learning different languages like Polish, English, Spanish,
Right brain
etc.
versus left brain.
Yes, the same part of the left brain is responsible for learning languages, foreign languages, and speaking these languages when it comes to data, emotions, beliefs, reflections, reactions, or actions. So 6 types of language. And this is why people are not getting along. They think that the other person is has the same preference. That's why. I'm not sure how it is in your countries and cultures, but in Poland it's like, I'm not sure if I speak Chinese to you, but you don't understand me, and both of us speak Polish. So it's
Right.
like, we just don't understand each other. And it's not because we speak different languages from the native perspective, but it's like we are speaking different languages from the personality preferences perspective. So first 3 steps of the CQ method is to know yourself. So map yourself, map your team or people around you. You can train on your own family. I recommend that because it's the closest people to you and you have so many data about them. And then tailor your communication. See how people are going to react differently. Sometimes it's just one word. Changing one word is a huge thing that you can do. You change I think to I believe. I think or I feel. And sometimes it is just that. Asking a question or making a direct sentence, because people have different preferences when it comes to building sentences, when it comes to communication. So yeah, in a nutshell, as I said.
Whoa, I feel and I know that there's nobody better to do these than a Polish person, a Polish or Lithuanian. When the guy from Lithuania invited me, I was like, I want you to come to Lithuania. You will like it. Just 2 sentences, I was convinced.
And you did it.
And when I landed, I think I landed at Kaunas Airport. I had to drive to Vilnius. And when I met him in Vilnius, he said, oh, you're a person of your word.
Yeah.
You said you
And
would do it, and you came.
Yeah. Yes, and you did. And this is super important for some people. If you keep your word, this is those people that have beliefs and the trust, and this is important. For some people, it doesn't really matter because they have super small access to this floor in their personality structure. We all have everything. So basically, we can go into communication and get along with everybody.
Mhm.
But we observe the world, first of all, mainly through our lenses, through our frame of reference, our favorite paths and patterns. And this is okay because that's who we are. And nobody teaches it at school, and it breaks my heart. So that's why I'm here and trying to do my best to change that.
Now, people like you are
Yeah.
teaching it, right? And I
Yes.
did have a guest on the podcast recently. I don't know if you've seen that interview. That is the one with Dr. Tatiana Tepova. She's Russian and she's Harvard trained and she's an expert at nonverbal communication. You saw that? Okay, that's cool. So she says that nonverbal communication is even more important than verbal communication. The nonverbal cues are more important than what you are saying because the body is a snitch. The
Yeah.
mouth can be saying
Nonverbal.
something,
Yeah, nonverbal
but your
is
body is giving you out.
yeah, definitely. I know different research gives different numbers, but something between 60 to 90% even is nonverbal. That's why we have so many conflicts around email or when you don't put your camera on when
Yes.
you're talking with somebody.
Mhm,
It is because you're robbing them out of all of those cues that they can see, they can hear when and especially when you have a meeting and you're muted and off camera. So it's like you have a back on your head and there's nothing. And
Yeah.
over email, it's crazy how much miscommunication and conflict and misunderstandings are. And I see it all the time in different organizations, regardless of the industry and the country and the size of the company, that are email stuck. Email. And there is nothing out of this conversation besides conflicts and, the wasted time. So
Polish people like to do, would I say tapping sounds, like what you just did. They say, ask a question, boom, 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 boom. Like, why is it, why is it that you guys do that? I'm curious.
it adds up to the nonverbal communication. So you have more cues that you can make your guess and your hypothesis about the communication. But not all of people are doing it, and it depends on your structure as well. If you have very very far this floor that it is connected with using more nonverbal, because there are many people who are very flat when it comes to using nonverbal, like poker faces, like very monotonous tone of voice, very like sitting like a tree or something, very like, and actually there are a lot of people like that. So I have them, a lot of them in the workshops. Sometimes they're sitting for the whole day.
You really can't tell. Is this person
You
happy? Is this
can
person
tell
sad?
what is
The,
happening in their brain.
the poker face is just so crazy. You
The question is,
cannot
do you
tell.
prefer the poker face or the beach face, right? Because it's like you need to choose, because some people have this one, some people have that one, and it is a cue as well. You need to follow the signs, because there is an algorithm to recognize who is in front of you, and
Mhm.
there are patterns. I mentioned 6 types of language, 4 types of nonverbal communication, 4 types of communication channels, 9 motivational needs connected to all floors, and you're done. So that's why people, especially in technology, IT, engineering, so this is the area that I work with, they love this method, because it's not the psychological bullshit that's like, you need to listen more, or you need to be more open. It is like blah, blah, blah. Okay, so what exactly I need to do? So that's why people love it, because it shows them step by step what they need to take care of when it comes to themselves, what they observe, what they need to be more aware of, what kind of signs they need to be more conscious of, and then they observe the world in a better way. So it's the ready to go process, the ready to go step by step process that you can use. And the beautiful thing is that it is replicable, so you can use it at work, you can use it at home, and you can use it anytime in any culture, because it's immune to bias when it comes to the cultural differences. So we all have everything, and I think that it's very much a relief that we can actually get along with everybody. Sometimes it hurts because the people are so different in the structure that they need to they stretch themselves more,
Mhm.
but it is possible from this perspective.
Mm. Communication is key to achieving anything, right?
True.
And of course, to achieving organizational goals and individual goals. But you have this affinity towards tech. So when it comes to specific communication challenges that are unique to tech leaders, you know, for example, the highly analytical teams that work remotely, and of course, with all of the complex technical jargon that they have to communicate. So, what is that immediate impact of better communication on the team dynamics and success of their projects?
The first thing that I see the most after the first part of the training or mentoring sessions, they start to understand. They have so many aha moments. They start to understand from their brain, because they use mostly the logical part of themselves. They have like, that's why they don't get it. Not because they're idiots or they're not thinking logically, but because I have the curse of knowledge. I'm an expert in my area, and the language that I'm using that is very much into details, technological aspects of it, this is very much connected with what I want to achieve. I want you to understand every single thing. This is my mission. And shifting your brain into, okay, they need to understand the bare minimum or only what they need to know to move their work forward is crucial, and it is essential for them to make this shift when it comes to mindset and then the skill set, because they learn that yes, they need super techie jargon, they need super techie communication, but this is only their need. Not all of the people, especially in business, that is not as tech savvy as themselves. So they start to learn how to, and this is important, how to simplify the communication, because they're doing amazingly well with complexity, and people, especially nowadays, are great in complexity, but simplification not so easy to do. So what I see and what I work with teams especially is to simplify the communication. It keeps it shorter, more essential, and more to the point, regardless of the culture, because we talked a little bit about that. Regardless of the culture, regardless of the country, the size of the organization, it doesn't really matter. But being more to the point and understand that people have different communicational needs. So sometimes they need to say how they feel about something. Sometimes they need to do a little brainstorm, even if we already have a solution. Sometimes people need to get involved in the process. And we need to let them, because that's how we build engagement that is critically low right now when we are recording this episode globally. It's getting lower and lower. So it is something that I see the most, that people start understanding that their communication preferences, they're not the only one. They will find somebody's that they will speak their language fluently, because they speak data and those speak data. But there are 5 different options there, and they're aware why people are reacting in a certain way. They are getting the why that this is so essential. So this is the biggest, I think, change that I see in people's brains, in the thinking patterns, but also the doing patterns, because thinking is only one part of the story. How they react differently, how they change their approach, how they doing projects together differently, how they work on a daily basis, especially remotely or hybrid, when they don't sit together in one room, but they work in different countries, in different time zones. They work on different tools. So they are becoming more aware, and the leaders are becoming more aware of how to lead that kind of complex environment, and not to adding more complexity, but actually to simplify things, because we don't need more complexity. We have it. I think we have enough. We need more simplification and things that make sense, and they actually create value at the end of the day.
Absolutely. Wow, you've spoken a lot about psychology and, having people being allowed to express how they feel. And psychology is simply the scientific study of the human mind, right? And we've said this. Your philosophy agrees with my philosophy. Mindset is number one. Skill set is number two. Tool set is number three, right? So speaking of practical psychology, right? Like moving beyond the theory to measurable impact, to results driven frameworks. Like how do you translate complex psychological principles into something that is tangible and actionable for these tech leaders who are often looking for clear, direct solutions? Tech guys, they want to be able to measure the impact, right? So, how do you translate those psychological principles into something that yields results, and that result is measurable and trackable?
So when the first thing that I do most of the time when a person or a team or a company approaches me, that they say, "Hey, Alex, we saw what you're doing, or we saw you at the keynote at the conference or something. We want to do something like that for your team or for our team or for our manager or something like that." I ask a question: what kind of change do you want to see at the end of this process, of this workshop, of this growth program, you name it? What kind of change do you want to see in this
Begin with the
person?
end in sight.
Of course. And then we do reverse engineering, because I do believe that you need to have the purpose. Without that, it's only just a 1 day training, and it's going to be fun, it's going to be interesting, but after a week you won't remember a thing. So it needs to be rooted somewhere in the numbers, because as I said, I'm an analytical person, and I believe in that when if you don't measure, you can't grow it. So it can be quantitative and it can be qualitative, doesn't really matter. So I ask about this change, and I look for the numbers they can use. It can be engagement results, engagement survey results. It can be team satisfaction results. It can be feedback that they've gathered over the months. It can be 360. It can be feedback from the team. So sometimes I talk with the team at the very beginning of the process. I have the script that I run, let's put it that way, and then I do the same conversation at the end of the process, and I measure the difference. So those can be goals, business goals. It can be KPIs, OKRs from the perspective of how the team or how the person works on a daily basis. So over a quarter of the work, it is very visible. Actually, after first training, after first mentoring session, you can see the first pieces of changes. So answering your questions, I always put the goal that is connected with numbers, regardless of the type of the work that we are doing together. So what kind of change do you want to see in yourself, in this team, in these results, whatever from the business perspective, from the team perspective, and organizational perspective? Sometimes if the organization is small, you can make it directly proportional to the goals that you have as a business. And then we go to the toolkit. So what kind of tools? Here is the palette, and just pick your poison. For over those years that I've learned on my own, and I taught others, but also use it on myself as a leader and as a person. I can tell what can you take out of it, and I can suggest something, but at the end of the day, this is your decision what you are going to choose. So the autonomy of building yourself is crucial. So you're choosing your tools and you work on them. So you work and practice on how to use them. So if you are choosing the process communication model that I mentioned, we are going with the questionnaire, we are going with the reports, we are going with the tools. You're training how to tell your communication to what you have to yourself, but all the other to and the next to others. We gather feedback from the team, how they see that you changed over the last couple of weeks or months, and we measure the change. So this is what I do, because I do believe that the motivation is important, but it comes and goes. Consistency is a key. That you do things over time and you do it repetitively and you measure the results. This is what you can actually see when it comes to transformation, transition, and change. And it lands so well with people who need it, who don't need another wishy-washy woo-woo thing. Sometimes it's important, to feed your brain with something like that. But at the end of the day, business results are there to be met. And we need to be equipped to do it from the mindset, skill set, and tool sets perspective.
Speaking of, mindset, skill set, tool set, now you're talking about tool sets. And I see psychological concepts or psychological frameworks as tool sets, right? Of course,
Yes.
definitely you use these psychological models to achieve change. And in the process of achieving change in any organization, there are three things that are involved. You have the people, the processes, and the systems. You cannot achieve change by just changing one thing. If you change the people, but you don't change the process, you don't change the systems, you will achieve the change you're trying to achieve, right? So one of the one of my favorite psychological models is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because it just helps you to understand people on a general basis, right? And what everyone is striving to achieve ultimately. I also love the Myers-Briggs, the type indicator, but I would not for you to give me maybe one, two, or three psychological tools that you like on your own to use to in your process of consulting with leaders or HR. So
Yeah.
what tool sets do you like?
So the first one is that I mentioned a couple of times already. So the process communication model, PCM, is a framework. It is similar to, if you know, Insight or Disc or something, anything actually based on the Carl Jung methods can be treated similarly, but the PCM is very, very much much complex, but in a good way. So it's not only saying you are from the perspective of the structure of your personality, but what's most important, it says why. So it gives you the why that is behind it. So what shaped you in the past that you are a person that you are right now as an adult person. It gives you algorithms of your behavior. It gives you patterns, and you can do a pattern recognition and what kind of patterns are serving you and what kind of patterns doesn't. So this is important from the understanding the behavior part. So not only who you are, but why and what you can do with it. So this is the application in real life. Not only the theory, not only the framework, not only describing who you are, but why and what can you do about it. Bad days and good days. So this is important. So this is the first one. The second one is the whole framework of transaction analysis. The PCM is a part of it, but I treat it separately because it is the concept, the framework that is separate. But the whole framework is transactional analysis. And there are many tools that I use on the organizational level. The one is contracting. So how to make contracts with other people. So this is the first one. And to avoid misunderstanding conflicts, because I'm not going to assume what you want. I need to actually say it out loud. So it is there in between us, and people are not doing it very well, and I see it all the time. So this is the second one as a whole structure. And the third one that I really, really love is the wheel of conflict. And this is the tool, not the whole like Myers-Briggs or PCM, but this is a tool that is extremely powerful. 5 types of conflicts, the wheel of conflict, as a tool that shows you why. Again, it gives you why people are wasting time, because time is a currency.
Mhm.
And hear it all the time that people are, I'm sure that you do as well. I don't have time. And it drives me crazy. And I
In
hate
life, we
it.
have only three resources: time, money, and effort. Time,
And
money, and
effort.
effort. Those are the
Of
three
course.
resources we have.
Of course. And when I hear the sentence, I don't have time, in the past, right now I'm different because I'm smarter. I've got wiser over the years. But like a couple of years back, I got mad when I've heard this sentence, because it's so much a lie, it's not true. It's not about the time. It's never about the time. It's about your priorities and how
Mhm.
you get them.
Mhm.
And of course, we have different situations when it comes to your life. You can have kids or don't have them. You can live in a certain part of the world or not. You can have different positions and different task lists, different roles
Mhm.
that you have, but we all
Mhm.
have 24/7. So
Yeah.
it's not about the time. And the wheel of conflict is showing you where you are losing your time and how you can get it back, because you go into the wrong directions when it comes to using it. And you're wasting so much time on miscommunication and conflicts because you don't tailor your communication. And we're circling back to communication intelligence very freely.
Whoa, what goes around comes around. Having that full circle
Yeah.
around. Yeah, communication. It still centers back on communication. Whatever model you're looking at, whether you're looking at PCM, you're looking at Myers-Briggs, you're looking at even the five love languages, they're just ways of communication. So, you know, when you are actually helping these leaders, basically what you're doing is you're bridging a gap, right? Because as a consultant, you are brought in to solve a problem. And that is the mindset. I am a consultant as well. I remember working with the big four accounting firms, PwC, KPMG. They tell us the reason why these guys bring you to their offices is because they have a problem that they cannot solve on their own and they need you to solve it. You're basically bridging gaps. Being a consultant, even though you have very high level academic qualifications, and of course also professional, certifications. You and me, we both know that theory is different from practice. They teach you something in school, but when you
Yeah.
get into practice, it's a different ball game. How do you help bridge that gap between academic psychology and of course real world leadership challenges? And of course, I'd love for you to give us examples of how understanding team psychology can lead to specific positive outcomes.
Yeah. So 80% of what I do is practice. So it is super important for me. I'm not a theoretical person. I love a good theory, of course, but it is super important for me for people to train themselves. And as an example, like it was like last month or something, one organization approached me. It is one of the biggest tech organizations in Poland, and they asked me about, hi Alex, we just need some communication workshop, one day thing, and because we are okay, but we need something that people can experience. We have some budget left for the year, so let's do something like that. And every single time when I have a situation like that, I start to dig deeper into what is under the surface, because if they're saying that, we are okay, we have some budget left, we want for team to do something together, to meet on site, to have lunch together or dinner or something, and aside of all of that, they have a workshop that they have, we love your energy, we love what you're doing, and you are trained as a person in tech, so it fits. And what I did is to start talking with every single team member. There are 10 people in a team. And we've started just to talk, just a quick meet and greet, like 30 minutes a conversation or something. And they started to, and I don't know about you, but I don't know if it's a gift, quote unquote, or a curse, but I have something in myself that I meet somebody and we talk for 10 minutes and I have the whole story of their lives. The whole story, the whole situation at home, their health situation. And I'm not even asking. Okay, let's be honest here. But I don't know if it's something in me that invites them to
No,
share.
it is something in us.
I think so. I
And
work
that
on
is
that
why you're
too.
also a podcaster. That is why you're also a podcaster.
That's true. And people
We
are
get
saying that
stories without even asking. And then, they talk and talk. And then at the end, they say, wow, how come you made me say so much?
I didn't. I actually didn't. Yes, that's true. And I have it. It happens all the time. And I have this hypothesis that people just don't have other people to talk to, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why they have a person like that actually is listening, and no phone. The phone is somewhere there, and I'm really curious about yourself as a person. It gives them the space that they don't have on a daily basis. I have this
Mm-hmm.
hypothesis, and I'm testing it right now. But hey, so coming back to the story, I start talking with those people and they start talking to me about different situations and different problems. And there I see the patterns. I see the patterns that there is no feedback, there is no trust, there is no recognition that is tailored to what they need and not to what the leadership or organization did set as a framework for the team. And I come back to the stakeholders, let's put the name like that on them, and I say, hey, I know that you came to me with a need like that, but I see that, of course, I can do it if you want, but I would take 3 steps back and address this, and this before we go into your need. And they were like, how do you know that? And I was like, yeah, people, and I saw the pattern, and I come to you with a solution, because it's like we can train people on communication. Let's put it that way. It is always beneficial. It will be always beneficial. So they train on themselves. They train on communication between themselves, etc. But you have problems on the process level, of the contracting level. You have frameworks at place that are not a fit to a team like that. They need something else. And before we go further, I advise you to take care of that. And we can do it together. You can do it on your own. I always do it like that. I'm never pushing that you need to do everything with me. I'm not an expert in everything, of course. So I told them that this is what I can do for you. I would do it in this order. And then we can do the communication. We can do the communication workshop or the growth program or whatever. So they were so shocked that they ended a call. So they told me they need time, and I said, okay, call me whatever. And they called me like 2 weeks after or something like that. And they say, Alex, thank you for your honesty. Nobody ever told us something like that. And we want to do it your way. We want to try it. We don't know what is going to happen. We need to be careful because our organization has different policies and then processes, etc. But we want to try, and we've already started. So it is always something underneath the surface, as you mentioned, as consultants, we have different things that we can see because we are not inside of the system all the time. So we have different perspective,
different lens. And that's
yes.
why myself and my co-host are wearing the lens so that we can see
Yes.
very well into your organization.
That's true. And sometimes it's crucial just to ask one question that nobody ever asked before. This is what happened with this organization that I just gave you the example about.
The ability to ask probing questions is very, very important. I'm going to give it over to my co-host to ask you questions about team building excellence. But before I do that, I need to appreciate your skills. Anyways, Leman Skills.
Of course,
Leman
obviously.
Skills. Lemańska coaching from team building, aside from engineering, aside from music, you are also talented with improv comedy. You know how to mimic people. You switch voices and tones and cadence. Come on, give it up for the world best, Aleksandra Lemańska.
It's
Absolutely.
always good to have the plan B when it comes to the business, right? Always switch gears a little bit.
I'm going to hand it over to the world best in music and marketing and sales experts, Noella Rook.
So you've spoken a lot about your background in HR and how kind of you bridge the gap between engineering and analytics and even having a musical brain and creating this insane leadership method that is it's so funny. A lot of the most productive methods, I always call them simple but not easy. You know what I mean? Like the structure of it is so simple, but as humans, we overcomplicate our minds and we overcomplicate our thinking and overcomplicate just the way to success. So when it comes to, I feel like everybody deals with this at some point, and with your background in HR, you're most likely an expert on this. How do you create environments, or how do you help leaders foster environments where teams are thriving to the point where, it's reducing turnover and increasing productivity at the same time? Because like you said earlier, when we're building teams, it's not necessarily productive to have all rock stars or all, that one type of person. We are structuring our teams to be a whole force, a whole system, a whole machine. But how do you make sure that every part of that team, feels included to where turnover isn't an issue and productivity isn't, suffering?
Yeah. I'm going to simplify it, as you mentioned, to make them simple, not easy. Because if you ask different leaders, you have this checklist. Do you do it all? I myself included as a leader, and of course, I'm not doing all of those things all the time.
Mm-hmm.
course, I'm not somebody who's perfect, but I do my best. So I would simplify it to three main things that I see the patterns again, and I see that it's working. The first thing to do when you're building an environment for people that can thrive, that can be effective, is what I mentioned before, is to do good contracting. So people know what they do, what they not do, and this is important, what is in their scope of responsibilities and where they make decisions. So they are not wasting time on asking around or wondering or looking for information or making meeting to the meeting to the meeting to the meeting, and they're wasting so much time. So this is what I do as a leader as well. First of all, good contract for the scope overall. It is not like we did recruit this person, so they're supposed to know from the recruitment process what is in their scope, because the three of us know, and I'm sure that all of the people that are listening know, that the recruitment process is the marketing process. Both sides are giving their best, but not remembering a thing from the conversations that actually had. So it's needed at the very beginning of the cooperation to set the rules. And it's about processes, it's about procedures, it's about the tools that we are using, it's about how we communicate, what kind of tools we are using for project management, for the management of the specialists role that they are doing. So this is the first and foremost thing. The second thing is to tailor your communication. I'm going to be boring about it, but it's about people need to be seen. And if you, as a leader, you don't know who is a person in front of you, who are you leading, who is in your team, what are the preferences, what is the team map, what is the way of communication they need, what is the way of working they need, because some people need to work alone, on their own. Some people need to work in a huge group and a huge open space on site, because without that, they're not efficient. Some people will work well in a small group, 2, 3, 4 people. And you need to know who your people are as a leader to make this environment work for them. Because sometimes people, and this is my experience as a leader, I had the assistant, it was like 2 years ago, a year ago as well. And I made those mistakes on my own as well. So I teach people how to not do it. I had a person who preferred to work with people, and he had a background in a corporate world. And he was used to work with others, and with me it's a remote work. We see each other like from time to time, and he didn't deliver his work, not because he didn't know how to do it, because he was incompetent. He was fully competent, but his preferences of working with people in contact was so strong that he was frustrated all the time, and it influenced his creativity and efficiency and effectiveness. So this is the second thing. Tailor your communication, know your people, and this is connected with delegation, feedback, recognition, goal setting, execution of goals, growth goals, everything that is connected with a person's journey in your organization. So this is the second thing. The third thing, don't be afraid of letting people go, because we tend to stick with people who we know that are not a fit, that are not a person with a skill set, mindset, and tool set that
The
we want
mindset
them to
first.
be.
The mindset
The
first.
mindset first, always, of course. We know after working with them for a couple of months or a year or a couple of years even, that they're not a good fit for the team, for the role, for the product, for the organization itself. Sometimes there is a misfit when it comes to the culture, because the values are different, so much different, that a person is suffering and the organization is suffering. The clients are suffering. So it is not selfish. It is not, if you did everything you could have and it crossed everything from the list above, it is okay to have this conversation and just to support a person in the transition to another team or another organization. And people are so afraid of doing it because they're so afraid that they're going to hurt others and they're going to crush them. But it really depends on how you are doing it and why you are doing it. So I did this mistake in my past as a leader as well. So I'm saying it out loud right now. Don't be afraid of doing it. Of course, not the first thing you're doing. Don't get me wrong here. But sometimes it's just it's just a misfit, and you cannot measure everything during the recruitment process because it's just not possible.
You cannot measure everything. I'm going to say something before Noella comes back. You said that the recruitment process is like marketing, and it's just like you're talking about Noella's work. Noella is the best marketing expert in the world. Nobody can tell me anything about that. If you have a problem, go report me to the British police. But the interesting thing is, what if I lied on my CV that I can speak Polish, and now Alexandra is asking me questions? The only thing I can say is "Dzień dobry, dzień dobry."
It's a good start. No, don't be too harsh on yourself.
I see a lot of jokes on the internet these days. When I lied on my CV, I can do this and then. Yeah. I just had to put that in. Over to you, Noella.
A couple things kind of lit me up a little bit. So, mainly, I just wanted to touch on how you're speaking about not being afraid to let people go. It kind of made me think a couple things about just from like a leadership standpoint, kind of, I guess what I wanted to start with is that as a leader, it's so interesting because if you're not able, well, first of all, if you're not in alignment with the overall vision and you're not committed to the overall vision, you won't be able to let people go. So if you're not, I guess, 100% clear on where you're going as a company or what the goals are or even what the branding is, you've worked with a lot of startups. When you're in that rapid phase, you have to be super clear on kind of what your goals are, what your mission is, what your purpose is, and what you're doing. So I think it's really important to be clear on that so you can let people go in the correct time. And I think you're 100% right when it comes to saying people are scared of hurting each other's feelings and stuff like that. It's really interesting it's when you're not able to let the right people go and you keep the wrong people, your turnover can absolutely be higher. And then the right people will quit. You know what I mean?
That's
Because they come in and they think the culture, they're super excited to come in. Maybe they have meetings, with the head HR person who's super clear on the mission, or they have meetings with the CEO or, the top leaders, whatever. Then they come in, but we haven't had that same standard trickle down into the rest of the team. And you have someone who has a certain expectation, like, okay, I'm so excited to come in. We're going to crush these goals. We're going to do X, Y, Z, and I'm going to grow. We're going to change lives or, whatever. Or I'm going to come in here and do the best paperwork, whatever it is. Maybe they're
Yeah.
not like training and stuff like that. Maybe they are more administrative. But even so, that can lead to higher turnover just because the people that aren't aligned, kind of bring it down a little bit. So I think that's so interesting and so important. To kind of be in alignment and not be afraid just because if you don't, it could just lead to more turnover and lead to even worse, production in the team. So that's a really good insight for sure. I just loved hearing you speak on that. And then with that, I guess, are there any misconceptions, I guess, about team building that you address with the method that you're working with right now? I feel like you said, you're so good at what you do, and we become so good at what we do because we fail, and we're not kind of scared to fail. So, what are kind of the misconceptions that people face with this method and that they work through?
Yeah. I think the first one, and I want to stay here a little bit because it's about diversity. Because
Mm-hmm.
we were taught as leaders for years that you need to build a diverse team. That the more diversity you have in a team, the better for everybody. And the leaders started doing that. And what I see right now is that people are so tired of this world in overall, that they did quit doing that because it's easier for us to work with people who are similar to us because they have the same preferences of similar preferences, they work in a similar way, they have similar preferences when it comes to work environment, they have similar needs basically. And what I address with the method is that you build diverse teams, but people need to have something in common. If they are so diverse that they have nothing in common, it's almost impossible for them to get along. And it will cost a lot of effort, energy, time, stretch, learning for them to go into the level of understanding each other so well that they work together well as they are so diverse. So we are working on creating teams and team building based on, yes, you need different talents, you need different skills, you need different pieces of mindset. Sometimes you need people who are going to hate what you are doing because they need to you need to be challenged. They need to challenge the status quo that you are giving them and so on. But then what you mentioned, Nola, is about having the common goals. This is the first thing. So we all know where we're going, why we are doing it. So what is the value that we are creating? So this is it. And who is doing what? Again, to the contracting part. So one of the biggest misconceptions for me is that this is we need to be so diverse as possible, and this is not true. So this is the first one. The second one is the one size fits all. If I learned one tool, one framework, one approach, it is going to be copy and paste, and it's going to be working all the time. And it is so wrong. That's my heart is bleeding right now. And I see how people are copying and pasting the tools that can be amazingly well used, but they're using them wrong and they're not working. And they're mad on the tools, and the tools are crappy. I'm not going to use them anymore. And it's not about the tool. It's never about the tool. It's about how you implement it. And that's why you need bigger toolkits for you to take what you need and to fit it, to match it into a certain situation. This is the second. No, again, it is not a groundbreaking, discovery that there is not such thing and one size fits all, but you would be surprised how many people
Alex,
are doing it.
sorry to interrupt you. In Nigeria, we have a proverb. That proverb says, "A lazy man always blames his tools. A lazy farmer always blames his tools."
Yeah, always, because it's easy, right? It's easy. There's a tool. I learned the tool. The tool doesn't work. This is a crappy tool. Easy peasy, right?
Yeah, that's what lazy people do. They blame the tools, but mindset, skill set, before tool set.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I guess my next question is I'm gonna kick it back over to AI to see where he wants to take it.
Okay, and I just wanted to say that I have 7 more minutes. So
7-2, boss.
Building relationships with people who understand global impact for sure, because that's a pillar of what we do. And obviously, leadership in general just trickles down into every area of success. So it's, we really appreciate having you and hearing what you have to say. Like you said, we could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. And it's so important. It's incredibly important. And it's so funny just to talk about things that can be simple, but are not necessarily easy to implement, but it impacts culture and leadership and just the success of all the businesses that we want to thrive just around the world. So it's so great to have you, so great to hear about your expertise. And honestly, it's just fun to talk to you because we're pretty similar. Like, we're all analytical people, we're all musical people. So we're all, I call it kind of tryhards. Like we're like, if we're going to do something, we do it um, very passionately. I can tell that about you, just very passionate. So that's amazing to have. We love to hear it. And I know our audience needs to connect with that, because that's another thing too, is when it comes to leadership, sometimes there's this strange notion sometimes where you have to have a certain mask to where you have to be strong or be whatever it is, depending on the industry you're in. We have a lot of tech people that tune in, and I love to speak passionately, speak openly about what really leads teams. Hang on, I think my daughter is yelling for me, so I'm going to mute my mic really quick.
Authenticity is key. authenticity is really, really key to what we do. And of course, that's one of the reasons why we really, really appreciate you. I'll put you through a quick fire round real quick, so that we can get your testimonial on the podcast as well. So, what is one word, just one word that describes your leadership style?
Authenticity.
Whoa! You stole my word. You stole my word. We need to bring a war to Warsaw because when Poland saw war, they ran. Whoa. Okay. Who's a leader, past or present, you deeply admire and why?
I think it may be an outrageous answer, but I admire Elon Musk.
Oh,
And
yeah.
not a
He's a great guy.
person as
He,
yes,
yeah, the
but what
intellect.
he does, the
Yeah.
intellect, what he does with all those businesses that he's running, I admire that.
Yeah. I love that. We will do great business together because there's something I always say is very important to be able to separate the artist from the art, and that's exactly what
Mhm.
you have done. A lot
Yeah.
of people don't have that ability. So, and of course, the three of us have that ability to separate the artist from the art. And yeah, we really, really appreciate you. Okay, so if you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would that be?
I think that I would tell her to let go more,
Mm,
to let go more of the beliefs I have, the desires I have, the dreams I have, because they're mine. And not all the people that are around me have the same ones. And that's
mm.
okay.
So, at this juncture, I want to say a very, very big thank you to you. I always say this on the podcast. When a person shares their time with you, they share their life with you because the SI unit for measuring life is time. And of course, love and respect to you being on the show today. Noella, and the last words. And of course, if you want to give a shout out to anybody, let us know.
Yeah, I just want to definitely thank you so much for your time. It's honestly been amazing to hear you. I know our audience is um so I don't want to say thirsty, but yes, thirsty for this type of knowledge. We're all passionate people for sure. And having that expertise and having these systems are just imperative for whatever industry we're in right now, whatever phase of business we're in right now. So just thank you so much for spending time with us and giving so much knowledge, so much experience, and so much of your energy. It's really appreciated. You're such a pleasure to have. So thank you so much. I guess my
Thank
only other, yeah, I would love to maybe even book another session to do the second part because we would just we could just talk forever about leadership.
I know.
So yeah, if we can, absolutely. But it's just been such a pleasure either way.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you for having me. And you know what? I love talking with other passionate people about shared passion. So creating value together. 1 + 1 + 1 is more than 3 in our case. So thank you for
Mm-hmm.
having me.
Boom, 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 boom,
Of
boom.
course.
Let's go to the audience, guys. Guys, go like, subscribe, share with your family members, your
Mhm.
friends, even your exes, right? And your enemies. Share.
Especially with exes.
Just keep sharing. Share. It's goodbye from us, guys.